All right. So today I wanted to go over some of the things that are going on in the industry.
Okay.
Now, museums aren't necessarily the same kind of industry as maybe insurances or video marketing, but I figure there are some things going on just across the country, within the state, that are affecting non-for-profits. And I'm sure you guys are feeling some of that.
Yes. Yes, we are. Volunteers is always a big thing. We run on volunteers. That's how we stay open. But in the country and technology related, there's a big change in how your message goes out, how it gets perceived, that you're being aware that you're telling the story correctly. And it's not a political ploy. It's not, it's not trying to manipulate the message. It's being authentic. Like, how are we being authentic to where we are and where we live and the building that we're trying to represent?
Yeah. And this is kind of off topic, but like in the vein of that, I know there was a movie that was made, or I suppose documentary made about the town that we're in right now, Lynden. And it was during the time of the Black Lives Matter movement, I think during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it was a big deal. And a lot of people, like some of them got up in arms. Some of them were like, no, this is an important story. And it goes to show that it really does affect everyone in the cities, places like us.
Yeah. And preview is important. So when you announce what you're doing, it's usually, well, not usually, but it's usually a comment about why aren't you doing something else, or a snap judgment based on a preview or something like that. So
No, for sure. Well, let's start with a fun topic. Let's talk about the economy.
Oh,
Famously fun.
yeah.
So the economy for the last 4 years, depending on who you've been listening to, it is either the worst economy we've ever had, or it's the best economy we've ever had.
Sure.
I'll let the viewer decide. I don't know.
Subjective, I would say, because so many things can impact, right, what you believe is a successful year. It could be where you are in your job. Are you guys both working? Do you have kids? Do you have not kids? Do you have to buy like groceries 3 times a week, which can bankrupt you right now, it feels like. But for us, we really try to listen to the general core of what we hear in our community, right? If people are saying, man, we're really trying not to eat out and doing extra activities, we're trying to stay home more and all that kind of stuff, that tells us that we need to find more funding and make things less expensive or free. So we're still going to we can't not charge people to come in. We can't not do certain things, but we can make it more affordable for them to engage with us. So our open houses are free. We provide food and beverages. All of it is free. So a free family day of fun and other things that we'll do. So we just try to balance out what we know we need to participate in as a business and what we can do to give back.
So have you found that that's been the case for the last 4 years, that people who might be interested in the museum are just having a hard time bringing the family out just because they have to get that third run of groceries that week?
I think that it's different because the museum is not like going to a movie. And although education is really important to parents, it is a different interactive experience, one that probably not all kids are excited to do. We always have kids who are really happy to be in there once they kind of realize that there's lots to look at and we can engage them through activities and all this kind of stuff. But it's a lot easier to choose one or the other when we are a museum and we are less interactive versus choosing an activity that you know will easily distract and enjoy your kids for an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Right.
Even if you have to pay a little bit of money for that one, it's hard to compare them.
No, and it's certainly fair. And that's when you're in a hard economic time, people often have to make those decisions about what do we need and what's for pleasure. And then when it comes to pleasure, they get picky and choosy and like, where do museums factor into that list? And it's a hard conversation.
It is. And that's why we have made a really big focus on the free engagement and the partnerships with local organizations. So the organizations will come into the museum and they'll do a free event, like the Whatcom County Dairy Ambassadors. They do readings once a month. They'll come in and they'll read books to kids, right, with an agricultural topic. But we get to participate in those activities, which are free, and they provide a service, but we still get to engage with our community.
Right.
And so making sure that in the years that we know, we don't want to have people choose. We want us to just be an easy choice to make regardless. And so we just have to make sure we have those opportunities available to them.
All right. So would you say that museums by and large, and perhaps this is too wide of a question because I know different museums are going through different things, but do you think museums are generally struggling in 2025?
So, yes. We are part of a museum organization and association that spans locally as well as all over the country. And we're not heavily involved with that. We don't go to the conferences or anything like that. But I do read a lot of the articles in the papers that they come up with in the forums of what other people are struggling with. And one of the things that does help me balance what we're doing is the fact that technology, information access, all that kind of stuff is things that they are also having a problem with. It's just a really weird transition. Kids can look at everything on their phone. Without having them play a video game,
right?
How do you bring them in to the concept and immerse them in a way that you get their attention? So we're not the only ones. Bigger museums, obviously the funding is different because they might have more available. We're a local museum. We don't have a line on the federal budget like some do. We are very beneficial that we have city support and things like that, but our funding struggles will be different than theirs. We don't have galas. We're not the Smithsonian, those kind of things.
So can you describe a little bit about how the landscape that museums find themselves in has changed, maybe over the last 5 years or maybe over the last couple decades? Because we've had the internet come into reality since like 2012. That's been a main thing.
I think that it feels like what I hear is that people who are running exhibits, the personal connection part. So if it's a conversation about heritage and where we came from and where our area started with, and maybe like one of our goals is to bring the Nooksack Cultural Department from the tribal area in to do an exhibit with us. And things like that need to tell their story by them. Personally, we can still relate. We're still going to make a connection. Or maybe it's not them. Maybe it's agriculture. Well, I'm not going to tell the story. I want a farmer to come in and I want to connect with them because their story of their upbringing or memories is going to connect with other people. And I think really capturing those to get the intimate reactions from people are what everybody else is trying to do as well.
It does seem to be, again, I know it's like a political thing for a lot of folks, but during COVID, we had such a big emphasis on people telling stories that are their stories. Like the Native Americans tell the Native American stories. Black people get to tell the Black stories, which that's fine. Yeah. That's not actually that political of a take, I don't think.
No.
Do you find that it's hard to find people to tell those stories though?
I think that your approach to them initially is very important.
Gotcha.
Because the message and the goal of the museum is to be an accurate representation of the past. And if you're going in there with a different agenda, if you're going in there to be selective with information, if you're going in there to say, well, I only want you for this part, it doesn't play well. And that's not what my job is. The story is the story. The past is the past. I might get to highlight certain pieces of the information, but it's not my job to choose what gets left out. or what actually is the main part of that time period that we're talking about.
And you've not, like, obviously you have to play some role as curator, but you've never found an issue with balancing those interests, eh?
Maybe we're fortunate to where we are, that the stories tend to relay themselves in a agreeable way. I don't, so
and not to
there
say
might be things, but I also think that the people that we're working with, when they come in and they talk to us about topics, there's an understanding that you're trying to reach as much of a broad base as you can, because that's how you inform people.
And it's not to say that the stories are nice necessarily or cheery. It's just not unnecessarily, I suppose, controversial.
Well, it's the way that you tell it. I mean, you think of the books and the movies about, the war in Auschwitz and all that kind of stuff. You gain people's interest. They want to learn. They want to know more. And it's tragic. And yet at the same time, they do it in a very, what's the word I'm trying to say? Appropriate and meaningful way, regardless of the topic. And I think that if you have the right person trying to tell a story in a visual and verbal way, that can be achieved with anything. Even if it's tragic, if it's good, if it's heartbreaking, I don't think it matters. It's still going to be it could still be a hard topic.